This is the Tapped In Podcast, the podcast for beverage distributors that want to empower their sales team to drive business results. Listen up and welcome back to another episode of the Tapped In Sales Podcast, your podcast for beer distributors by beer distributors. I'm your host with the mostest, here with Moneyball Ross, Data, Mike, and we have one of the smartest people in our crew, Alicia. We need a proper nickname for Alicia, but we don't have one yet. I will come up with one at some point in time in the future, but sometimes you don't get one for the first episode. Well, welcome, Alicia, for joining us for today's episode. Before we dive into today's topic, how about you share a little bit with the people who you are, what you do at VXP, and what your background is as well?
Yeah. So I joined VXP earlier this year. I'm on the customer success side with Data Mike, helping distributors with objectives, incentives, all things system related, managing sales programs. That's kind of where I've spent most of my career in the industry. Prior to joining the VXP team, I worked for a distributor out of the state of Wisconsin for the last 13 years, kind of specializing in analytics, overseeing our analysis team and program administration. So held several roles, love this industry, love working with it, love the people, and that's why I'm here.
Well, we're so happy to have you. You've been a big help already. And today's topic is right up your alley because this is something that you had experience with recently with your team when you were just, working and helping run the distributor day to day. And as Mike and, myself and Ross, we used to do that day to day, but now we work with a bunch of clients. You're the closest to it. And one of the things that you had said was there's a lot of anxiety around artificial intelligence and AI at distributors right now. And I think that's something we should talk about as a group on the podcast around what that anxiety is, what it looks like, where it comes from. And really, at the end of the day, you probably have a lot of folks, if you're listening to this, around your operation that have either dabbled with AI or playing with AI or talking about it. It's showing up in conversations at strategic planning meetings, at supplier meetings, at vendor demos like people like us, like VXP, and industry conferences. And the pressure isn't as much curiosity, Alicia, as it was like a FOMO, right? Fear of being left behind. Do you want to help articulate where you felt like some of the folks on your team were? And also, I know we all work with clients every day. Some of the FOMO that might be going on in our clients as well. Kind of articulate the elephant in the room and what people are feeling right now about this topic. Maybe start there, Alicia.
Yeah. I'm going to share the story that sparked all of this, right? And that was attending an industry conference, a technology conference earlier in this past fall, where I was tasked with two things before heading out to that conference. And that was, understand the roadmap. AI is such a buzzword in our industry, in every industry, truly. So get an understanding of what the roadmap is for anything AI related from system vendors, and then also make sure to network with other distributors and understand how they're implementing AI today. Really, like you said, Bud, it was kind of just along the lines of FOMO, fear of missing out, not wanting to fall behind. Yeah. And truly leaving that conference and having other discussions with distributors, it seemed like all of us were tasked with a similar mission, right? No one was really implementing anything that was earth-shattering, besides meeting summarization or some people, little pockets of people using ChatGPT, things like that. And that's kind of what I took back to our distributor at that time and asked the question. I think that's a core question that every distributor should start with. And it was, what problem are we trying to solve? Start there, which is kind of another iteration of Ross's famous tagline, which is, what are we trying to achieve? And that's where all of this kind of spiraled into how can distributors make this decision, ensuring that we don't make a bad investment throughout the process. I think there's going to be a lot of hype around AI, and I think this is more of an episode around how we can guide and ensure that people are asking the right questions to solve, the problem that exists within their organizations.
There is a ton of hype, right, Ross? And when people think about the hype, comes back to like, what are we trying to achieve? And also different various levels of what AI is. There's algorithmic AI where it's a recipe. This is going to, you're going to put a recipe together and put it out and put something together. There's AI, which is large language. They're going to go interactive, one way, shape, or form in human language back and forth. And then there's even probably another iteration of it, which is real predictive AI or reasoning AI as well. So there's kind of like a couple different threads there. Machine learning is another one. So Ross, there's all this like word soup that goes back and forth from tech bros like us and tech vendors like us will pick on ourselves in this, because we can do that on this podcast. This is our podcast, so we can pick on ourselves here. And that can cause a lot of chaos and challenges for somebody who's trying to buy or pick out what they want to do first, right? You've got any advice, Ross, on like where this feels overwhelming and how you're thinking about it with distributors as well too?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to step back 1 second and just acknowledge the anxiety piece of it, because I think this recording's timing is really apropos, because by the time this comes out, it'll be old news. But last night, Jack Dorsey and Block announced that they were laying off over
40% of their people.
45%? Yeah, 44%.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Stock jumped 20%. And that did two things. One is it freaked out people, right? Because unless you're living under a rock, your next logical assumption is that the other side of it as a worker is what happened to the stock price, and what the board and the executive team of these companies across the tech industry are going to start doing, which is they're going to look at what that did and what that did to the stock price, and that's going to naturally lead to more of this, right? So I do want to acknowledge this anxiety, right? Because it's anxiety at the worker level, it's anxiety at the management leadership level. And even though historically speaking, our industry is relatively backwards is not the right word, but we're a little slower to innovation. Let's put it that way. Our industry as a whole is not Silicon Valley, right? It's more brick and mortar. It's more family business. Now, we kind of straddle the two worlds, right? We are a tech company that also lives in the brick and mortar distributor world. But I want to make sure we acknowledge, or at least that I also acknowledge, that anxiety and that it's real. And the one thing that you forgot, Bud, too, is the autonomous. When we bring AI down to, the localized level in devices or humanoid robots at some point, or self-driving cars, which again, these things are all going to impact our industry. And we've talked about it on prior pods, but so I think you have to divide AI into all these really specific different silos. And to me, it's similar to the early days of the internet, which is there were different, groupings and disruption waves, right? There was the internet as it was, data, then it became, Amazon and fulfillment and the disruption of brick and mortar retail. So it's going to have different waves and different iterations. I think this is .com on steroids. Like this is like the industrial revolution happening in 20 years, wrapped up in a .com bubble. So it's going to be fast. It's going to be
messy.
It's going to be, businesses are going to shoot up, disappear. I mean, it's going to be chaotic. Again, I think the good news for our industry is that we are an industry that is brick and mortar. It is a product that gets delivered. It's not like you're going to drink a virtual, vodka, regardless of that, Super Bowl ad that you made fun of. But, you're not going to drink a virtual vodka, it's not going to replace the physical, tangible thing. It'll disrupt some of the supply chain elements. It'll disrupt how we manage our warehouses. It'll probably disrupt how we do our business. But at the end of the day, we can bring the anxiety down a tick just because the industry we're in. We'll be later. And I think we can't virtualize what we do, right? I mean, we're still human beings that consume alcohol and non-alcoholic beverages. Like that's not going to change unless the AI takes over and puts us in zoos. Which
I'm always really nice to mine, so I'm going to be first in line for my cage.
I want to be in a good cage. I want to be in a good cage with the good food. So,
Do you use please and thank you all the time in your AI prompt? Please don't put me in the back of the zoo.
I did get in an argument with Delta's new AI though on their phone calling center, and that did not end well. It hung up on me.
Oh God.
So yes, anxiety, still a lot of things to learn there, Ross, for sure.
And I think I even waffle back and forth between some days where I'm like, this is all smoke and mirrors bullshit. It's just trying to predict the next word. This is not going anywhere. To then you like see Anthropic and what they did, and you're like, oh shit, we're all going to be in a zoo in 3 years. Like you kind of like, even I go between some days I wake up, I'm like, this is all smoke and mirrors bullshit. And then other days I'm like, oh shit, I'm going to be in a zoo. Like, you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
And these are like the people on this podcast, we all have, for context on things that we use every single day. We have a ChatGPT subscription for every one of our team members, and we are actively using it behind the scenes to help it with like automated tasks, helping with write emails, looking at information on where we're reviewing stuff. We're building tools for our clients using AI and using of various different types, everything from algorithmic machine learning all the way to large language model and the cutting edge stuff, all and everything in between as well too. So we even have anxiety back and forth, Ross, between us as we talk about this over how's this going to impact our business, how's it going to impact our clients' business, how's it going to impact us personally long term. And we're heavily invested in these tools, using them day in and day out. So that recognition was kind of, Alicia, was really the jumping off point, like that this is okay that you feel like this. And now it's about how does this industry, as we're industry insiders and experts, how do we want to start to deal with it? And the effective way that you manage this is like, how do you get stuff to work well? And Ross, maybe we wait a little bit longer. We don't have to be such early movers in some of this stuff because we can let some of the fast moving industries, AI in healthcare, AI in banking, and some other places where you can have a lot of benefits, work the kinks out before they come to us, because we're still learning on how the best way to use it. And we also don't have to deal with some of the big disruptions then if things don't work right as designed or as planned either. So Mikey, have you been talking to any clients about AI and working with what we do professionally or just one-on-one too? I know you asked AI about this conversation, see what it thought about it too. So dive in, my man.
Yeah, I mean, when I got the planning for this episode, I was like, well, we need a subject expert. None of us are AI experts, so why not ask the expert AI? So I did. I said, basically my prompt was, what would you tell beer distributors about AI from your perspective? So here's what AI had to say. If I could tell distributors one thing about AI, it would be this. I'm not here to think for you. I'm here to help you think faster. The companies that get real value from AI won't be the ones trying to replace judgment, relationships, or leadership. They'll be the ones using it to remove friction, right? To surface patterns sooner, prepare better, and shorten the gap between we should and we did. If you treat AI like autopilot, you're going to be disappointed. If you treat it like a disciplined autopilot or co-pilot, you'll adapt faster than the market around you. And it doesn't replace good operators, it amplifies them. I thought that was pretty powerful, right? That's coming from AI itself, from the subject expert. So kind of backpedaling there, I do get a lot of questions from owners and operators. What should we be doing with AI? What are we missing out on, right? What's out there? What could we do better? And I feel a lot of that pressure isn't curiosity. It's like what Ross said and Alicia, it's the fear of being left behind. Am I missing something? Someone else moving faster, right? So you take that a couple steps back. AI is not here to replace your sales team. It's not here to eliminate managers, right? It's not here to take over your business. If done right, it just removes the friction that you forgot you're living with. And basically, it's a time saver. So what Ross always says, what are we trying to accomplish, right? It's not here to run your business. It's not here to tell your reps exactly what to do. We need to save time. We need to have better analytics. We need to have better data to be able to still have humans make those decisions. And I think that goes a long way because our business is built on relationships and humans. And there's no way AI will ever take that. And if somebody thinks it will, that's going to fail drastically. So I think it really goes back to people just being in the fear of what am I missing? So, taking a step back and really what are you trying to accomplish with AI? What is the problem we're addressing? And how is that going to address that problem and make our business operate smoothly?
Ross, I'm glad you brought up Jack Dorsey's, it's Block, right?
Yeah, Jack Dorsey.
You know, they're trimming 40% of their workforce, and there's a bunch of leaders that are going to read that and be like, how do I do that too? Well, there's a lot of context.
You signed.
Yeah. There's a lot of context. There's a lot of context around like, how has that operator hired? Do they have a bloated staff already? Are they disciplined in their employee management and how many team members they have? Were they preparing for something in a buildup of team members that didn't come to fruition, and now they're re-engineering for more profitable? Money is more expensive. We talked about this on the pod lots of times, where taking out debt is more expensive, or raising capital is more expensive. Trimming headcount can avoid you, or you get profitable and position much faster. So there's a whole host of context that when we're in our industry, I like to believe that most of our operators are fairly disciplined about their employee count and their team member account. If we can trim a route, we actively are looking at that. If we can be smarter about how we service, we are actively looking at that on a regular basis. Operations at beer distributors are typically attuned to doing things as efficiently, as effectively as possible. We come from an operational background more than we do from sales and marketing background. And we're more open to those kinds of ongoing cost cutting or optimization programs than before. I mean, Alicia, in your role, how many times did you go by where you didn't, as an organization, look at an operational reroute every single year in some way, shape, or form? We're almost all doing that in some way. So there is a relief of FOMO around a lot of these things at some of the technology companies that are out in Silicon Valley, or the global tech firms where you're seeing people trim headcount. That might just be to poor operational management on their side, not necessarily how smart or how AI is going to be more efficient and effective. Just like, hey, in this new regime, we do need to get more operationally disciplined. And we're just starting to maybe find the same discipline that our industry has already. So that's another little tidbit that I would put. I'm sure my dad would be like, we need to figure out how this works. And like, we'll be fine. Don't worry about it. We're already as trim, as lean as we can. We're not going to cut half our people and sell the same amount of beer tomorrow, because contrary to popular belief, as what Harry says all the time from Beer Business Daily, beer is heavy. It needs to be moved around. You need people to do that.
Well,
And I think
before you jump in, Alicia, I mean, I think it's also importantly, or it made me think of Sam Altman came out after the Block announcement and said that this AI is getting blamed for operational efficiency trimming that should have otherwise already happened. And if you even read Jack Dorsey's letter, I mean, he basically built two stacks of his company run around the Cash App and the other one on the crypto side. But he realized that it didn't need to be two different stacks. So was it really AI? Again, that's the dichotomy between, is it bullshit or is it going to be, are we in the zoo? And I think that, not to, going back to your piece, but about what we're doing, to give us some credit, I think where we're also sitting is we're going to play the ball on the field where it lies. Yeah. And that is an ever moving ball for sure. But I think where it sits today, I think there's some interesting things we can double tap into. But I think it's important also to recognize that what Altman said, which is this is just an excuse to get more efficient, which aligns with what you said, Bud, which is we need to be thinking about efficiency at any given time.
Well, I wasn't going to pick on Jack Dorsey publicly, but I will now because you laid the foundation for it. He also ran Twitter. And Elon fired 40% of people who were working at Twitter the day he took over. So Jack has a habit of hiring more people than he needs.
And we didn't. Well, with that one, we didn't get to see the stock impact because it had moved public, private, and that did send ripples through the industry in terms of layoffs. I think this will too, but this time we got to see what the stock impact was.
And that will make people. So what Ross is saying for listeners is that will force boards and senior leaders at publicly traded companies to take note to the value accretion that has happened from an increased stock valuation off of a trimming of headcounts like this. And they'll be more institutional or more instinct to do it rather than before as well, rather than just calling Elon crazy. Alicia, back on the roadmap here, AI is not a strategy, right? It's a tool. Where do you see AI as a tool versus a strategy when you're thinking about this in your roles and working with clients and at your former role too? How does that come to life and how you want a beer distributor to start to think about strategy versus a tool?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I'm probably going to take a couple steps back on how beer distributors can kind of prepare today for AI, right? Like I mentioned, roadmap seemed somewhat far out. We don't have a solution today that was ready necessarily. That would just shake the core of every distributor to kind of onboard to a tool like that. But what I think distributors really need to be focused on is their data today and how that looks, right? Putting strong processes around auditing historical information, ensuring that the data is clean and structured, because AI at the end of the day, it's just it's a pattern recognition system, right? And that's truly what it is at its core. So if you have garbage as part of your database or RAS or ERP, it's going to be garbage out. So it's just going to amplify the chaos that exists within the RAS or within any database. And AI will not fix bad data. So I think distributors today just really need to focus on data governance, data integrity, ensuring that there's routine auditing processes in place just to look for, are IDs matching? Are there missing fields? Is data duplicated in any area that we don't want it to be? Things like that. Assigning ownership for accountability, like I said. And I don't want this to sound like it's scaring any distributor from making the jump to implement AI, because you don't need perfection at the end of the day. I think it's just about bringing awareness to how important it is to keep a clean database, structured and consistent for AI to implement and, see that return on investment.
It's a great point. If you are a listener and are like, where do I start with that? If you go all the way back to episode 11, Mike and I did an episode on data cleanliness and simplifying product and customer categories for better insights. That's the name of the episode. It's episode 11. And we even built a little guide off of that too on building structure and managing the data. Because those are something that, Alicia, you bring up a great point. That is something that a lot of distributors can get better at or are actively getting better at, especially when they start working with us too. Because it is garbage in, garbage out in some ways, and we do need to streamline and clean that up. Did you have any modeled practices where you saw your team go back? How long or how often did they audit? What did that look like? All of that good stuff.
Yeah, and this kind of comes down to being a shared responsibility between multiple departments, right? It's possible, depending on the size of the distributor, that there's one person, but in our case, we have multiple people, managing the product section, the customer section, the users, the this, the that. So we had a routine auditing process in place that every quarter we would go through and just run through the data, sign off on specifics that we were looking for, and making sure that our data was as clean as possible, especially for, not even AI at that time. It was really just ensuring that the integrated tools that we were using, because they're a reflection of our RAS, had that data updated. And a lot of times, when you implement new systems, there could be fields that you're using or just not necessarily monitoring with your current processes or practices, but then, you integrate a new system and that system relies on that field. So just ensuring that the data was all around cleaned up and we had a clear understanding of what fields impacted, what reports, and going through that quarterly.
Ross, if you were back running a beer distributor right now, what would be some of the questions that you'd be asking as like the CEO, CFO, chief revenue person around how can we bring AI in as a tool and somewhat of a strategy, but also as a tool? Any good advice there? Like we should be, and I'll kind of kick one off. Like where do we lose the most time in the day? Like what are we doing that's a repeatable task that we could automate in some way, shape, or form? Anything else that comes to mind from you as you think about this?
Well, it's hard for me not to be biased by what we're doing.
For sure.
Because that's going to shape my answer here. First of all, Alicia, 100% right. First things first, clean up your database. And I don't care how good your processes are, it's not perfect yet. And think about how you want it structured in such a way to do what you want to do, right? I think we have, we serve multiple masters in terms of like our suppliers and that sort of thing. And if we have to have multiple fields for customer classifications or product classifications, we need to do that. So I think you need to be thinking about your classifications in terms of what you want to use your data for. What are you trying to achieve? So therefore back into, what that data structure should look like. If A, B, or MC wants to categorize in a certain way, give Caesar Caesar's. But at the end of the day, you need that category for yourself to do what you want to do. So I think you need to be thinking about different cuts on the same data, and be strategic about it. Back to your question, but because I just want to double click on what Alicia said, because it's so damn important. For me, it's tactical right now, right? So going back to what I said, play the ball on the field. Where the ball sits in terms of, and it's changing every day, and the models are getting significantly better. I think you mentioned that we use ChatGPT. There are some additional frontier models that we're moving towards as a company. I won't name them necessarily, but read the news, you can figure it out. Which is changing where the ball lies. And I think we're finally at a position where I think we can bring strategic value into our specific industry. So I don't think it's this grandiose thing where I just say, this AI take over my business. Just like Mike read off, the AI said itself. So I think we need to be thinking about strategic, repeatable functions, like you said, Bud, and think about how we do what we do better and more efficiently. And just think about the things that just suck time. Think about pricing. Think about, how we're, again, I'm going to be biased here, how we're building our incentives. Think about functional roles that are very repeatable tasks that are very time consuming. And again, the people that are most anxiety ridden about what's coming are software developers. Well, that's not a big issue inside of distributors. More of the white collar jobs around like accounting, legal, those sort of things, because they're very repeatable, predictable tasks. So think about the predictable, repeatable tasks that aren't physical in nature. And that's where you should be thinking about how you can gain additional efficiency. And it's not about getting rid of people. It's about getting them more engaged in value add activity. If you've got somebody that's spending 75% of their time on compliance, maybe you can get it down to 25% of their time. Because that individual is probably a pretty smart analytical person that can be doing other things.
Absolutely. That's so true. And the anxiety piece keeps coming up over and over again, because I think it is such a huge part of AI, right? I mean, whether you're an owner operator, you're seeing it everywhere. It's showing up in your Zoom meetings, your board meetings. It's everywhere. You go to trade conventions, that's all you see, right? So the anxiety there of what am I missing? What do I need to implement? And maybe even just the jumping on without even understanding completely what you're signing up for, or what that's going to accomplish for you. And I think about people that don't really know a whole lot about AI. Their anxiety is, oh my gosh, this is taking over our world, right? I mean, you scroll Facebook or Instagram and the videos that are 100% AI generated and photos, and it's just like, they'll circulate the world. And people are like, oh, AI is taking over our world. It can do this. No, those are humans that are telling AI to do that. That's not AI deciding to make a crazy video for 100,000 clicks. That's a human telling it what to do, right? So the anxiety piece is super real. And putting on my sales reps hat, huge anxiety there too, right? Where there may be failure to adapt. Hey, there's a great tool out there that's going to help me make better decisions in my account. That may be translated as, hey, this tool is here to take over my job. And if I make it fail, it won't take over my job. So there's so much anxiety on every piece that you look at it too. And I mean, it's not a brain, it's not a replacement, right? You have to use it as a time weapon. And exactly what Ross said, where are we spending the most time? Where can we shorten this up? From our own experience, the amount of time that it saves us, we're a pretty small team. And we pump out a lot of stuff with a lot of clients. And we have a huge training platform too, right? To be able to shorten that up from 4 or 5 days worth of work into a couple of hours and get some transcripts or anything else that we need to put out. It's a huge time saver for us. That's where it's valuable for us as a company.
Yeah. And I think I want to jump a little quick into what Mike said real quick. Again, what I said is anything that doesn't involve our hands or people-to-people contact. Because we need to be careful that it's not a distraction from what we're really trying to do, which is manage relationships at the sales rep level. What I'm talking about is back office repeatable tasks.
Yes.
At least as a starting point. Who knows where AI goes? But again, where it is today, I think it makes a hell of a lot of sense in our industry in specific repeatable tasks in the back office. if you're walking in there with your face in a freaking phone talking to an AI, you're not talking to this, you're not talking to the person across from you, right? And I think, again, if you got a guy in the warehouse walking around on the phone talking to an AI when he's trying to drive a forklift, you're going to wind up with a lot more breakage, right? I mean, again, if it involves physical activity today and it involves human-to-human contact as the value proposition, it's not there yet, and it's going to be a while. But where it is today, back office.
Productivity enhancement is the name of the game. How can you be more productive as yourself, one-on-one, trying experiments and doing things, or bringing tactical tools into your organization that will make certain team members or certain functions or certain roles more productive over time as well. There's a bunch of different things. We're working on some stuff. We've even got some more ideas, I'm sure, that we will continue to work on behind the scenes. Some of the things that AI won't fix, though, right? So like, it's not magic. It can't be a magic silver bullet that'll fix anything. It's not going to fix any cultural issues that you have. If your organization struggles with change, this is going to be a very change-driven period of time, probably the next 5 to 10 years, for experience more change than the prior 10, 20, 30 years. If your organization is not built around handling change or coping with change, that's going to slow you down. You're going to have challenges with that. We're not going to fix poor workflows. You know, to Alicia's point, if we've got a systemized our workflow that doesn't work well, throwing more technology at it is not going to solve the problem. We got to go back and re-engineer that stuff and make it work better. And all our favorite ones, right? Any misaligned incentives. There are still humans pulling the strings currently. And if we have those misaligned incentives, we're not going to actually move the ball farther down the field, a la Mikey's point. Hey, this thing's here to take my job. If I make it fail, it won't take my job. And there's a ton of acknowledgement in the industry of AI and sales, and really just AI in terms of software development, that some of these programs and projects do fail, probably for a mix of 1, cultural issues, change management, a mix of 2, poor workflows, and a mix of 3, of misaligned incentives where people don't want to see this thing do well. So they don't help it, and they put their head in the sand. Alicia, those were some of the things that you added into the mix when we were thinking about this too. You know, any other challenges you see on the distributor facing side, specifically around, you know, it's not magic. It's not going to solve every silver bullet here.
I think a challenge that comes to mind is time to value. It's going to look different across every distributor. And I think it's really important that leadership takes a step back and kind of defines that based on what problem they're trying to solve. I think the introduction of AI is, you're not going to see, overnight outcomes. And that can be different from, sales leadership, just pulling a performance report and, being very result driven people. You're not going to be able to do that necessarily. It's going to take a lot of change management, like we just hit on, going to take a lot of user adoption, and it's going to have to change behaviors, and all of those things take time, right? So ensuring that your leadership group is aligned on establishing what that time to value timeline is, and ensuring that you're measuring that against whatever success metrics that you're putting out there for AI could be challenging. So I think putting that out there for awareness is important for the group to think about.
Let's model a little bit of like how anybody would start to digest the FOMO, move into some projects, how they own it, how they, digest it. I've seen a couple of good clients do this. We've heard things like, hey, we're going to create a committee. Committee is not one person, so not one division owns this project. It's not like IT owns it. It's not like finance owns it. It's not like sales owns it exclusively. There's a committee of senior folks from each clear division. We've got ops people, IT needs to be involved, sales folks, and administrative. So those kind of like 4 categories would be good people to have around the table thinking about committee work. Where do we want to start? What projects might be the most easiest, lowest hanging fruit? Where can we start with maybe the existing vendors we already have in our wheelhouse that we're already partnering with or doing business with? Maybe there are other vendors that we want to bring in. Can we build any of this by ourselves? Should we build any of this by ourselves? Also, to our kind of company's process here, when Ross and I decided to allocate out a login for everybody, a company funded login for at least ChatGPT for all of 2020, or well, most of 2025 and all of 2026. That for us, Ross, was just hey, let's get the tool out in front of people, and like let's have them just start having it. They have access to it for their daily lives in their personal and in their professional, and how they start to use it strategically. And they'll come back with good ideas on how to use it as well. So those are just a couple of ideas. Ross, Alicia, Mike, anybody who wants to take that, anything else that we can model out to folks that are listening, like how to start the process to break down the anxiety and to get into a mode of change and get into a mode of trying experiments with this kind of technology.
I think a roadmap is crucial. A roadmap of what you're really trying to accomplish. When we say, hey, AI can help you solve a problem, right? But you have to identify the problem. If your problem is, I want more sales. I want to grow my sales. That's not an identified actual problem that AI is going to identify and fix for you, right? When you break that down and, hey, we need to save our analyst time on this task. Okay, cool. What is the action plan and what is the outcome? How will it get there? Thinking of it as a magical tool that's just going to say, hey, here's all my sales reports, build my dashboard, build all this, right? We need to have an action plan with an actionable outcome for everything that you're trying to accomplish. So just thinking that it's a magical tool that's going to come in and automatically increase sales, or I'm going to give all this data to the reps and it's going to help them make all their decisions, right? That's too broad, and really need a narrow focus of what we're trying to accomplish task by task and how it's going to do it, and if it's going to do it too. There's a lot of companies out there promising an AI tool or this or that that's going to change the whole world, right? How does it do that? Individually task. How does it accomplish that? What is the outcome?
That grandiose mindset, Ross, right? That's the thing that I think annoys the hell out of you and me the most, of that just ask it anything. It'll solve all these problems.
Yeah.
And to us that grandiose idea is it's decision fatigue, right? It's too many things that it can do. So there's not enough focus around what it does do or can do well. How do you get it to change the world if it's just a text box right now? In reality, it is a text box. We're just going back and forth like that. It's not changing the world in a big way. And how do we get a user's mindset narrowed down to what can it do? That's the piece that I think we're most focused on and most excited about, is where can we have a positive effect and change for a role or a use inside of a role. Maybe not even a total role, just a section of a role that's in a distributorship.
Yeah, I think too many people focus on the end game and don't think about the beginning game. And what I really mean by that is it's context. And you give the AI the entire world of context, and you're going to get some garbage in, garbage out, right? Because to your point, but it's just seeking out the most, what it thinks you want to get out of it, right? Or what it, the most logical next step. So I think context is important. What I mean by context is two things. One is, what information are you giving it? And what information are you eliminating it from, right? I think AI in its current form, again, I need to temper all this, because if you listen to this a year from now, it's probably going to be completely bullshit and completely different. But as it stands today, limiting the context window, limiting the scope, and being strategic around a tactical outcome, AI can be very, very powerful. But if you just open it up to this broad end goal, solve everything for me, here's my entire business and the entire world and the universe and tell me what to do. No. I think it needs to be start at the beginning, which is, what is the context window necessary for the outcome that you want to achieve? And I think that's where you begin.
It's not much different than a child. When you give a child too many decisions, they struggle, and then they spit out an output, the response, which can be cumbersome or not right. If anybody wants to read a fun science experiment about it, Google the JAM experiment. The JAM experiment is all around decision fatigue. And if you think about it through the lens of context window and AI outputs, the more decision opportunities you have, the less reliable or responsive the result is. And in the world of the JAM experiment, it's about sales. It's about making a decision to purchase, and it actually limits the person's ability to make a decision to purchase because there's too much choice. There's way too much variety. And I've always been in that same personal wavelength as that, Ross, too, is simplify the decisions, you get better response. And we're seeing that AI kind of plays out in that real world example too. Alicia, anything else that you want to touch on in that? What would be the best things as you start to own this inside of a distributor? What other things have we touched on? Because you spent a lot of time talking about this and thinking about this internally, both on our team and your distributors team. What else have we talked about the distributors need to be thinking about for putting a roadmap in place for their own institution, their own team?
Just a small point to make is just kind of what to watch out for. Some of these, taglines of AI that'll transform your business, and it kind of goes in line with what we've all been saying. You need to know what you need to solve, and that line sounds great, but if it can't be clearly explained, what that transformation is, AI won't help you solve anything. That set it and forget it messaging. We all talked about how important human judgment still is. AI is just going to enhance human capabilities. So we shouldn't really have AI, at least to start, on autopilot mode. Just going to create some chaos there if there's really no oversight between, AI and human intervention. And then I would say just vague or really unclear responses around the data and privacy, because your data is a huge asset. And I think distributors need to start viewing it that way. That starts by taking care of it, having those audit routines in place. And demos are always really impressive. So just kind of always be leery around what you are getting yourself into, and ensuring that whatever, you make as an investment, that the data can integrate. It shouldn't really be siloed from the systems that you're working with. And I think I don't know if I want to open it up to you guys if there's anything else that I'm missing, but I think those are kind of just some watch outs that I'd put out there as far as, taking this next step and exploring what AI options are available.
What's fun about you bringing up the demo, right? Because I'm the knucklehead who sells this, our product that we work with, and you three are the ones that have to actually implement it. And I doing this more and more, right? And doing it for a couple different businesses now professionally, in a couple different products, you can watch these other vendors that are in wide disparate markets. So they work across a bunch of different markets, right? They just don't work in one industry. And that if they annoy you or oversell you as one buyer, they don't care. Their buyer universe is hundreds of thousands of businesses across the globe, right? They're not really worried as a sales rep or as a business relationship. I've always treated it as, in our industry, we're for beer, by beer. We just work with beer distributors. What are they? Better part of like 800, 900 families that run real, active, large scale beer distributors across the country. We have to take great care in taking care of them. So when I do demos, when we talk about this, when we implement our technology, we want this to work, and we want this to be the best product possible. Because if it's not, if they go tell 7 people, it doesn't take that many negative interactions. It doesn't take that many people to realize that we don't know what we're doing, right? And that's the piece of the puzzle that we bring to the game that's a little bit different for our unique industry and what we're doing and what we're trying to solve, versus a vendor that shows up that isn't for beer by beer or doesn't really understand the knowledge, or coming from a different industry into ours where they're servicing all these other industries. So that was a great watch out for me watching Alicia on the sales side call out to just be cautious if you are a buyer of these things and how these people are being grandiose with their demos or explaining how this stuff works, because you want to be held accountable to, as a salesperson, getting it right and getting it knowledge out there, and that it's actual factual and accurate. And I remember when I started doing this, Ross, and you were like, bro, you got to at least tell them what we can do, and we can't be too far forward fetching with them, because if we do, then we implement and they're like, this isn't what I bought. And there can't be that much of a disconnect between. And you really helped me coach through that, of how we need to be more narrow-minded around this is what we do today and what we're working for. I've come up with a roadmap versus dream map. Roadmap is what we're working on right now. Dream map is a cool idea that we'd love to get to.
I think that old adage, if it's too good to be true,
it probably
is more apropos now than ever before.
Yeah. Probably is.
And while we're on the subject of our product too, just watching, I mean, and this goes into the AI piece and introducing AI to your sales reps, watching the expressions on a sales rep's face when they first open our products, right? And in a customer screen, we're giving them some recommendations that may be some good opportunities for that account. And we're highlighting some at-risk products that need a little help, right? Or maybe should just be replaced with something else altogether. And when they first look at that tool and their interpretation is, this tool is telling me how to do my job, all they're doing is poking holes at, right? Well, this doesn't make sense. Why would it do this? And the minute you really explain to them, this tool is not here to tell you what to do. This tool is not here to do your job. This is not autopilot. It's just a whole lot of data simplified for you, the human, to make those decisions faster and smarter. And then to watch their whole, demeanor just change. It's like, oh, okay, well, I get it. Because I'm still empowering you as a human and as a sales rep. I'm just giving you better data to do that. I'm giving you more information to do what you do best, which is be a human, right? And sell beer. So to watch that. So I think from the sales rep's perspective too, of just bringing in a tool and saying, hey, this tool is here to tell you what to do. That could really damage your sales team too.
I think a good topic, good timing. Any closing remarks from the crew on this as we kind of wind down?
My only other thought I had jumping off one of the things you asked, Alicia, was, and I hesitate a little bit here, but I think about where the disruption's coming in the future, and think about big decisions that you have to make over the next 5 to 10 years through that lens. Specifically, I'm thinking about facility, thinking about automation in my warehouse. We're not at the point yet. I mean, we're at the point now where back of the office disruption and optimization and efficiency is the name of the game, where we can have actual physical, tactical, real world success today with AI. Think about where it's going, right? And think about that through the lens of your capital decisions. If I was sitting in the seat, I'd be thinking about that. If I'm thinking about, again, facility upgrades, changes, and automation in my warehouse. And again, I don't want to get too much in the weeds there, because we obviously have friends that deal with that on that side of the industry, but I'd be thinking about that.
There's just a lot of change going on at the end of the day. Like, that's the highest thing, probably from the highest level when you roll this back up top as a summary, is there's just an incredible amount of change, and how you digest the change from fear to looking at good strategical options to looking at tools, how you bring those tools to life with a process internally that is not just owned by one department, by one person, that it's owned by a fleet of folks that all touch different facets of your organization because they all have different needs and different desires. All of those things are good. And that's the model that I wanted to bring today from a discussion standpoint, so that distributors had a better feel for how to actually go about it. Because I think the largest fear, Alicia, probably comes from, I don't know what to do first. Right. And that's the story that you told early in the pod, which is, I don't know what to do first. So I have a lot of fear about what to do next. And if I can get through where I know I can make at least a first decision, then I can make a series of probably better decisions from there. I also love, like, everybody today on the pod talked about, we got to define what we're trying to solve. We want to look for a solution that fixes that specific problem. And, Lisa, you talked about this a couple of times, like empowering people to do their best work. So those are the three things, when we summarize it all today, around what we're trying to get done with this whole project around AI as an industry and how we can start to implement. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. If you continue to if you continue to like what we're doing, continue to share, subscribe, and talk with it about your friends. I love hearing. I did hear some one-on-one feedback this week about the pod. Mikey, we had a rep actually send a text to his boss. It was like, this is what I liked and didn't like about this episode. It was one of our interview ones, so it was great. So it's always good to hear.
Do you want to say where you were? Do you want to say where you were? You want to talk about where you were?
I'm not going to talk about where I was. I'm not going to talk about the boondoggle that I was.
We all signed an NDA. A lot of our
but
Can
we
you
were.
talk about the fact that nobody mentioned that my camera angles changed after almost
I noticed it.
over 50 episodes? I finally have a proper webcam.
You look great, and I'm not going to have to edit how you are in the screen. It's
even got a ring light. I mean, I'm going big.
Sarah is going to be so happy with your. I'm going to put you in triple high def for all of your clips this week, Ross.
And just to celebrate the fact that I have my webcam, I wore the vest that I unfortunately continuously wear on this pod. So. It's like when you watch the movies and the character always wears the same outfit. This makes it very familiar to you. I'm very familiar.
I had to take off a shirt, or actually, I didn't put it on. I was like, "Ooh, I wore that last week. I can't wear that today."
You think about it. I think about that. I'm like, oh man, sometimes I have to go back and look through Spotify. Like, what did I wear last week? I don't want to double that up.
Alicia is like, these girls on this podcast.
We're only a few episodes away from having stylists, so we'll just have somebody pick our outfits out for us.
I love it. Well, thanks everybody out there listening. Sorry, Mikey.
Are we getting close to 100? Where are we right now?
Oh, this would be 98. We're 2 away, my man. We're 2 away. So, but thanks everybody for listening out, listener land. Like, listen, subscribe, share with a friend. You can also hit us up with any questions for us on the pod. info@vxptech.com. That's info@vxptech.com. Alicia, great job today. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to the team. We have been excited to have you. I think we're just about to celebrate. I think this is the celebration of 2 months, right? Yes. So I love it. Well, thank you for joining us today. You did great. Boys, as always, love you guys. We will chat soon. Cheers.